Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe and share this with your friends so they don't miss out on any of our upcoming motivational messages from God. Follow us on YouTube and Roku for more powerful, life changing content shared by Dr. Netreia Carroll International Ministries.
Chapter 1. The Sound That Isn't There. Rain felt the shift before she understood it. One moment. The room hummed with the low murmur of chants moving around the kitchen, the clink of a glass, the soft scrape of a chair. The next moment, everything folded inward. The air thickened. The world muted. Sound didn't fade gradually. It collapsed all at once, as if someone had pressed their palm over her ears and pushed. She blinked hard, trying to clear the pressure. Chance's mouth was moving, but she couldn't hear a single word. His voice had shape, but no sound, like a movie playing on mute. Her heartbeat thudded in her chest, louder than anything else, the only thing she could still feel. She lifted her hand slightly, signaling him to wait, but he didn't understand. He stepped closer, concern tightening his face, and the movement made her flinch. She hated it when this happened in front of him. He always looked at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle he'd already failed once. Rain steadied herself against the counter. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. It pressed against her skull, made her vision sharpen around the edges. She could see every detail of Chance's expression, the crease between his brows, the way his jaw tightened, the way he reached for her and stopped halfway, unsure if touching her would help or make it worse. She shook her head slowly. She didn't want him to touch her. Not when she couldn't hear. Not when her body was trying to protect her from something she couldn't name. Chance mouthed her name again. Rain. His lips formed it with a softness she didn't trust. She looked away, focusing on the window, on the way the trees outside swayed without sound. The world looked normal, but it wasn't. She wasn't. The silence deepened, turning heavy, turning familiar. She hated how familiar it felt. Chance stepped back, giving her space. He'd learned that much. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if sudden motion might shatter her. She watched him gesture towards the table, asking if she needed to sit. She shook her head again. Sitting made it worse. Sitting made her feel trapped. She closed her eyes and inhaled, trying to ground herself the way Dream had taught her. Feel the floor. Feel the air. Feel the weight of your own body. But grounding didn't always work. Not when the silence came this fast. Not when it came without warning. When she opened her eyes, Chance was still watching her, waiting for her to come back. He always waited. He always looked scared when she went silent, like he was afraid she'd disappear completely. Rain swallowed hard, forcing her breath to slow. The pressure in her ears shifted, then loosened. A faint hum returned, thin and distant, like sound traveling through water. She blinked again, and the world sharpened. Chance's voice broke through the fog, muffled at first, then clearer. Rain, you with me? She nodded once. Not because she was fine, but because she needed him to stop looking at her like that. He exhaled in relief, but she could still see the fear behind his eyes. He didn't ask what triggered it. He never did. He knew she wouldn't answer. Rain pushed away from the counter and walked toward the hallway, needing distance, needing air. Chance didn't follow. He knew better than to crowd her when the silence had just lifted. But as she stepped into the dim hallway, she felt it, that faint, familiar pull in her chest. The warning, the echo, the reminder that the silence wasn't finished with her. It never was. Chapter 2. The House That Remembers. Rain stood in the doorway of the spare bedroom, the one Journey insisted she take. The room was small but warm, with soft light spilling across the floorboards and a window that looked out toward the trees. It should have felt safe. It should have felt like a fresh start. Instead, something about it made her chest tighten. Journey hovered behind her, quiet, watching her the way someone watches a person balancing on a thin ledge. Rain didn't turn around. She didn't want to see the worry on her sister's face. She didn't want to explain the heaviness pressing against her ribs. You can change anything you want, Journey said softly. Paint, furniture, whatever helps you settle. Rain nodded, though she wasn't sure settling was possible. She stepped inside, letting her fingers brush the edge of the dresser. The wood was smooth and cool. A faint scent rose from it, something familiar she couldn't place. Her breath caught. The room tilted slightly, not enough to make her stumble, but enough to make her feel unsteady. Journey noticed. Rain. Rain lifted her hand, signaling she needed a moment. She focused on the window, on the way the late afternoon light flickered through the branches. She tried to anchor herself to the present, but the scent in the room pulled at her memory. Something old, something she didn't want to remember. Her hearing thinned. Not gone, not collapsed, but stretched. Sounds felt distant, like they were coming from another room. Journey's voice softened into a blur. Rain blinked hard, grounding herself the way Dream taught her. Feel the floor. Feel the air. Feel your body. The pressure eased slightly. Journey stepped closer, but didn't touch her. It's the dresser, isn't it? I can move it out. Rain shook her head. She didn't want Journey rearranging the room every time something triggered her. She didn't want to be handled like glass. She didn't want to be the reason everyone walked on eggshells. She forced herself to take a slow breath. The scent faded. The room steadied. Her hearing returned in small pieces, like someone adjusting a dial. Journey exhaled in relief. You scared me for a second. Rain didn't answer. She walked to the window and pushed it open. Cool air drifted in, carrying the smell of pine and earth. It helped. It always helped. Journey leaned against the doorframe. You don't have to pretend you're fine. Not here. Rain kept her eyes on the trees. She didn't want to talk about it. Talking made things real. Talking made things surface. Silence was safer. Journey didn't push. She never did. She simply said, "Dinner's in an hour," and left the doorway, giving Rain space to breathe. Rain stayed by the window long after her sister walked away. The house was quiet, but not empty. It held memories she hadn't lived, shadows she didn't recognize, and a stillness that felt too aware of her. She closed her eyes and let the air cool her face. For a moment, she felt almost steady. Then a floorboard creaked somewhere down the hall. Soft. Familiar. Too familiar. Rain's eyes snapped open. The house remembered something she didn't want to, and her body remembered it too. Chapter 3. Chance's Eyes. Rain found Chance sitting on the back steps, elbows on his knees, staring out of the yard like he was waiting for something to appear. He didn't turn when she approached. He didn't have to. He always knew when she was near, the same way she always felt the weight of his attention before he said a word. She stopped a few feet behind him, unsure if she should sit or walk away. The silence between them wasn't the kind that collapsed her hearing. It was the kind that made her chest tighten, the kind that felt like a question she didn't want to answer. Chance finally looked over his shoulder. His eyes were tired, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying things he never talked about. He studied her the way he always did after an episode, searching her face for signs she was slipping again. "You good?" he asked quietly. Ray nodded, though she wasn't sure what good meant anymore. She stepped down onto the first stair and sat beside him, leaving enough space for air to move between them. Chance didn't close the gap. He never touched her unless she reached first. He rubbed his palms together, a nervous habit he tried to hide. It happened fast this time. Rain kept her eyes on the yard. The grass moved in soft waves, the wind brushing through it like fingers. She focused on that instead of the memory of the silence pressing against her skull. Chance exhaled slowly. "I didn't do anything, did I?" Rain shook her head. He always asked that. He always blamed himself. She wished she could tell him it wasn't him, that it wasn't anyone, that it was just her body reacting to things she couldn't control. But the words never came out right. They always felt too heavy or too small. Chance leaned back on his hands. I hate seeing you disappear like that." Rain's throat tightened. She didn't disappear. She just went somewhere inside herself where sound couldn't reach. Somewhere safer. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere she didn't have to feel everything at once. He glanced at her again, eyes softening. "You don't have to explain anything. I just need to know you're still here." Rain nodded once. She wasn't sure if she was here, not fully, but she didn't want him worrying. She didn't want him hovering. She didn't want him carrying guilt he didn't deserve. A bird landed on the fence, its wings fluttering. Rain watched it, grateful for something simple to focus on. The sound of its wings reached her clearly, which meant her hearing was stable again. Chance noticed the way she tracked the movement and relaxed a little. "You scared me," he admitted. Rain looked down at her hands. She didn't want to scare him. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want to be the reason people held their breath around her. Chance nudged a pebble with his shoe. "I know you don't want to talk about it. I'm not asking you to. I need you to tell me if there's anything I'm doing wrong." Rain shook her head again. It wasn't him. It was never him. But she couldn't say that out loud. Saying it meant opening the door to everything she was trying to keep locked away. Chance studied her one more time, eyes tracing her face like he was memorizing it. He always looked at her like he was afraid she might vanish if he blinked too long. Rain stood slowly. She needed to move. She needed air. She needed distance from the weight in his eyes. Chance didn't stop her. He just said, "I'm here if you need me." Rain paused at the top of the steps. She didn't turn around. She didn't trust her voice. She didn't trust the way her chest felt too tight. She walked back into the house, leaving Chance on the steps, still watching the yard, still carrying questions she wasn't ready to answer. And as she closed the door behind her, she felt it again, that faint pull in her chest, the warning that the silence wasn't finished with her. Not yet. Chapter 4, River's Pressure. Rain stepped into the living room and found River pacing, arms folded tight across her chest. The moment River saw her, she stopped moving. The tension in her shoulders didn't ease. It sharpened. "You disappeared during dinner," River said. Again, Rain stayed near the doorway. She didn't want to sit. She didn't want to be cornered. River's tone wasn't harsh, but it carried an edge that made Rain's stomach tighten. "I'm trying to understand what's going on with you," River continued. "But you keep shutting down. You keep walking away. You keep going silent." Rain lowered her eyes. She didn't want this conversation. Not tonight. Not when her hearing still felt fragile around the edges. River stepped closer. "You can't keep doing this. You can't keep checking out every time something gets uncomfortable." Rain's hearing thinned. Not gone, but strained. River's voice stretched, the words losing their clarity. Rain blinked hard, trying to steady herself. River didn't notice. "I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to help. But you won't let anyone in. You won't talk. You won't explain. You won't even try." Rain lifted her hand slightly, signaling she needed space. River misread it. "See? That right there. You push people away and then act like you're alone." Rain's chest tightened. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. River's voice grew sharper, not louder, but sharper in tone, and that was enough to make Rain's hearing flicker. "You can't heal if you won't be honest," River said. "You can't expect us to guess what's wrong. You can't expect us to carry you when you won't even stand." Rain's hearing collapsed. Not fully. Not the deep, suffocating silence. But enough to make River's voice fade into a distant hum. Enough to make the room tilt. Enough to make Rain's breath catch. River finally noticed. Her expression shifted from frustration to confusion. "Rain, are you listening to me?" Rain shook her head slowly. She wasn't listening. She couldn't. The world had muted again, soft and underwater. She pressed her fingers to her temple, trying to steady herself. River stepped back, startled. "Oh, you're doing that thing again." Rain closed her eyes. She hated it when people called it a thing. She hated when they looked at her like she was breaking on purpose. River's voice softened. "Rain, I didn't mean to push you. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to reach you." Rain opened her eyes. River looked smaller now, less angry, more afraid. Rain wished she could say something to ease the tension, but her voice felt trapped behind the silence. Journey appeared in the hallway, drawn by the shift in the room. She took one look at Rain and stepped between them. "River," Journey said quietly. "Not like this." River swallowed hard. "I wasn't trying to hurt her." "I know," Journey said, "but she's overwhelmed." River looked at Rain again, guilt flickering across her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was happening." Rain nodded once. She didn't blame River. She didn't blame anyone. Her body reacted before she could stop it. River stepped back, giving her space. "I'll try to do better." Rain breathed slowly, waiting for the world to return. The hum in her ears softened. The room steadied. Her hearing came back in small pieces. Journey touched her arm lightly. You're okay. Take your time. Rain nodded again. She wasn't okay, but she was present. For now, that was enough. River lingered in the doorway, watching Rain with a new kind of caution. Not fear, not frustration, something closer to understanding. Rain didn't know if that made things better or worse. Chapter 5, Dream's First Session. Dream's office was quiet in a way Rain could tolerate. Soft light, neutral colors, nothing sharp or overwhelming. The kind of room built for people who needed space to breathe. Rain sat on the couch, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the small plant in the corner. Dream sat across from her, not too close, not too far, watching her with calm attention. You don't have to talk right away, Dream said. We could just sit for a minute. Rain nodded. Silence didn't bother Dream. That was one of the reasons Rain agreed to come. Dream didn't rush her, didn't push, didn't fill the room with noise to avoid discomfort. Dream waited a moment, then asked, "How long did the episode last yesterday?" Rain hesitated. She lifted her hand and showed 2 fingers. Dream nodded, understanding the gesture without asking for more. Did anything specific happen before it started? Rain shook her head. She didn't want to explain the pressure in her chest, the way Chance's voice had blurred, the way the world had folded in on itself. She didn't want to describe the feeling of being pulled backward into something she couldn't see. Dream leaned back slightly. Your body reacts fast. That tells me the trigger is emotional, not environmental. Rain's jaw tightened. She didn't want to talk about triggers. She didn't want to talk about anything that might lead to the past. Dream noticed a shift. I'm not asking you to tell me what happened. I'm asking what you felt. Rain looked down at her hands. She could answer that. Feeling was easier than explaining. She tapped her chest lightly, then her throat. Tight. Heavy. Dream nodded. Pressure. Hard to breathe. Hard to speak. Rain nodded again. And then the sound drops. Rain nodded a 3rd time. Dream studied her carefully. Your body is protecting you from something it thinks is dangerous. Rain's breath caught. She didn't want to hear that. She didn't want to think about danger. She didn't want to think about anything her body remembered without her permission. Dream softened her tone. You're not broken. You're overwhelmed. There's a difference. Rain looked up for the first time. Dream's expression was steady, grounded, not pitying. Rain could handle that. Dream continued. When your hearing collapses, what's the first thing you notice? Rain hesitated, then lifted her hand and made a small circle in the air. The room. The way it shifts. The way everything feels too close. Spatial distortion. Dream murmured. That's dissociation. Rain's stomach tightened. She didn't like that word. It made her feel exposed. Dream noticed. It's not a bad word. It's a survival response. Your mind is trying to keep you safe. Rain swallowed hard. Safe didn't feel like the right word. Safe felt far away. Dream leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees. Rain, I'm not going to ask you to tell me what happened. Not today. Not next week. Not until you're ready. But I need you to understand something. Rain looked at her. You're not losing control. You're responding to something your body remembers. Rain's hearing thinned for a moment, not from a trigger, but from the weight of the truth. She blinked, grounding herself. Dream waited, patient as ever. When Rain steadied, Dream said, let's try something simple. When you feel the silence coming, I want you to name one thing you can see. Just one. Rain nodded slowly. She could do that. Maybe. Dream smiled gently. Good. That's enough for today. Rain stood, feeling lighter but also unsettled. Dream walked her to the door, but didn't touch her. You did well, she said, even if it didn't feel like it. Rain stepped into the hallway. The air felt different out here, sharper, colder. She took a breath and started walking. Halfway down the hall, her hearing flickered again. Not a collapse, just a warning. Dream's words echoed in her mind. Your body is protecting you from something it thinks is dangerous. Rain didn't know what that something was, but it was getting closer. Chapter 6, Royal's Arrival. Rain stepped into the foyer just as the front door opened. She expected Journey or River returning from the store, but the figure who stepped inside wasn't either of them. Royal paused in the doorway, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. When he saw Rain, he froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them tightened, not with hostility, but with something heavier. Recognition. Memory. A history Rain didn't want to touch. Royal closed the door quietly. Didn't know you were here. Rain didn't answer. Her throat tightened the way it always did around him. Not fear, not anger. Something more complicated. Something she didn't have a name for. He stepped farther into the room, slow and careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. Rain hated that. She hated the way people adjusted themselves around her, softened their voices, slowed their movements. Royal didn't do it out of pity. He did it because he knew what sudden shifts did to her. "How long have you been staying here?" he asked. Rain lifted 2 fingers. 2 days. Royal nodded, absorbing the information without pushing for more. He studied her quietly. Royal never stared, but he observed. He noticed things other people missed. The way her shoulders tensed. The way her breathing changed. The way her eyes flicked toward the hallway like she needed an exit. "You look tired," he said. Rain looked away. She didn't want him reading her. She didn't want him seeing the cracks she tried to hide. Royal stepped to the side, giving her space. "Journey told me you had another episode." Rain's hearing thinned at the word. Episode. She hated it. It made her feel like a malfunctioning machine. She pressed her fingers lightly against her temple, grounding herself. Royal noticed. "Sorry. Wrong word." Rain nodded once. She appreciated the correction, even if she couldn't say it. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed loosely. "You don't have to talk. I'm not here to interrogate you." Rain's chest tightened again. Royal never interrogated her. He didn't need to. He already knew too much. He watched her for a moment, then said, "You're hearing." "It happened again, didn't it?" Rain hesitated, then nodded. Royal's jaw tightened, but he didn't look surprised. He looked guilty. Rain didn't know why. She didn't want to know why. He exhaled slowly. "I should have checked on you sooner." Rain shook her head. She didn't want him carrying responsibility for something he couldn't control. She didn't want him stepping back into a role he walked away from years ago. Royal pushed off the wall and took a step closer, stopping when he saw her tense. "Rain, I'm not trying to make this harder. I just want to understand what's happening to you." Rain's hearing flickered, not from fear, from the weight of his voice, from the way he said her name, from the way he looked at her like he was holding a truth she wasn't ready to hear. Royal lowered his voice. "You don't have to tell me what triggered it, but I need to know if you're safe." Rain nodded slowly. She was safe. Physically. Emotionally was another story. Royal studied her face, searching for something she didn't want him to find. "You're not telling me everything." Rain looked away. She didn't know him explanations. She didn't know anyone explanations. Royal stepped back, giving her space again. "All right, I won't push." He moved toward the kitchen, but paused in the doorway. "If it happens again, call me. Even if you don't want to talk, just let me know you're okay." Rain didn't respond. She couldn't. Her chest felt too tight, her hearing too fragile. Royal nodded once, accepting her silence. "I'll be around." He disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Rain standing in the foyer, heart pounding, breath uneven. Her hearing steadied slowly, but the pressure in her chest didn't fade. Royal's arrival wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning. Something in her past was shifting, and he knew more about it than she did. Chapter 7. The First Flash. Rain woke before sunrise, pulled out of sleep by a pressure she couldn't name. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt intentional. She sat up slowly, letting her eyes adjust to the dim light slipping through the blinds. Her chest felt tight, not painfully, but enough to warn her that something was shifting beneath the surface. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood. The floor was cool under her feet. She walked to the window and pushed the blinds open. The sky was pale, washed in early morning gray. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. But her body didn't believe that. A faint hum started in her ears. Not silence. Not yet. Just a warning. Rain closed her eyes and breathed slowly. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't triggered. Nothing had happened. But the hum grew anyway, soft and steady, like a distant engine. She opened her eyes and turned toward the door. The hallway was empty. The house still. She stepped out, moving quietly, listening for anything that might explain the shift. Nothing. Just the creak of the old floorboards under her feet. Halfway down the hall, it hit her. Not a sound. Not a smell. Not a voice. A flash. Quick. Sharp. Gone before she could process it. A doorway. A shadow. A hand reaching. A voice she couldn't hear. Rain staggered, catching herself against the wall. Her hearing thinned instantly, the hum rising into a soft, suffocating pressure. She pressed her palm to her chest, trying to steady her breathing. The flash returned. A room. A figure. A feeling she didn't want to name. Rain squeezed her eyes shut. The images were too fast, too fragmented. They didn't form a memory. They formed a warning. Her hearing collapsed halfway, muting the world. She felt the silence more than she heard it. Heavy, familiar, unwanted. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, knees pulled close. She tried to ground herself. One thing she could see, one thing she could feel, one thing she could breathe through. The hallway, the floor, the air. The silence didn't lift. Footsteps approached. Slow, careful. Journey appeared at the end of the hall, still in her robe, hair tied back, eyes soft with concern. "Rain," she whispered. Rain looked up. She couldn't hear the word, but she saw the shape of it. Journey knelt beside her, not touching her, just close enough to anchor her. "It's okay," Journey said, her voice a muted blur. "You're okay." Rain shook her head. She wasn't. Something was shifting. Something was surfacing. Something her body remembered, even when her mind refused to. Journey waited, patient and steady. Rain focused on her sister's breathing, watching the rise and fall of her chest. It helped. Slowly, the pressure in Rain's ears loosened. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin threads. Journey exhaled in relief. "There you are." Rain didn't speak. She didn't trust her voice. She didn't trust the way her hands trembled. Journey studied her face. "You saw something, didn't you?" Rain looked away. She didn't want to confirm it. She didn't want to give the flash power. Journey didn't push. "Come on, let's get you up." Rain let her sister help her stand. Her legs felt unsteady, but she stayed upright. Journey guided her back toward her room, slow and gentle. At the doorway, Rain paused. The flash replayed in her mind. The doorway, the shadow, the hand. She swallowed hard. Her body wasn't warning her about nothing. Something was waking up inside her memory. And it wasn't finished. Chapter 8, The Family Call. Rain sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. The steam curled upward, fading into the air before it reached her face. Journey moved around the kitchen quietly, giving Rain space without leaving her alone. The morning felt heavy, the kind of heavy that settled into the walls. Rain's phone buzzed on the table. She didn't look at it. Journey glanced over. "You want me to get that?" Rain shook her head. She already knew who it was. The ringtone was soft, but the name on the screen carried weight. A familiar weight. A weight she didn't want to touch. The phone buzzed again. Journey wiped her hands on a towel and leaned against the counter. "You don't have to answer." Rain kept her eyes on the cup. The tea had gone cold. Her fingers tightened around the handle. The phone buzzed a third time. Rain's hearing thinned. Not a collapse, but a warning. The hum rose in her ears, soft and steady. She swallowed hard, trying to breathe through it. Journey stepped closer. "Rain, you're okay. It's just a call." Rain shook her head. It wasn't just a call. It was a door. A door she kept locked for years. A door her body didn't want opened. The phone stopped buzzing. Rain exhaled shakily, relief washing through her. But before she could steady herself, the phone buzzed again. A voicemail, then another buzz. A text. Journey reached for the phone, but Rain placed her hand over it, stopping her. She didn't want Journey reading anything. She didn't want anyone seeing the name. She didn't want the past leaking into the room. Her hearing flickered again. The hum deepened. The edges of the kitchen blurred slightly, not visually but spatially. The room felt too close. Journey noticed. Rain breathed. Rain tried. The air felt thick. Her chest tightened. The hum grew louder. Journey knelt beside her. "Look at me." Rain lifted her eyes. Journey's face was steady, calm, grounding. "One thing you can see," Journey said softly. Rain focused on the plant on the windowsill. Green leaves. Soft light. Stillness. Journey nodded. "Good. One thing you can feel." Rain pressed her palm against the table. "Solid. Cool. Real. Good." Journey whispered. "One thing you can hear." Rain listened. At first, nothing. Then the faint sound of the refrigerator humming. the soft clink of Journey's bracelet, the world returning in small pieces. Her hearing steadied. Journey exhaled in relief. There you go. Rain let go of the phone. Her hand trembled slightly. Journey didn't touch her, but she stayed close. Do you want me to block the number? Journey asked. Rain shook her head. Blocking it wouldn't erase the connection. Blocking it wouldn't erase the history. Blocking it wouldn't erase the reason her body reacted before her mind could. Journey hesitated. Do you want to talk about who it was? Rain shook her head again. She didn't want to say the name, saying it made everything too real. Journey stood slowly. Okay, you don't have to. Rain stared at the phone. The screen was dark now, but the weight of the call lingered in the room. Her body remembered something she wasn't ready to face. And whoever called knew exactly how to reach her. Chapter 9. The Partner's Shadow. Rain stepped outside to get air, hoping the cold would settle her nerves. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made everything feel muted. She wrapped her arms around herself and walked toward the edge of the yard, needing distance from the house, from the phone, from the weight of the morning. She reached the fence and leaned against it, breathing slowly. The air was crisp, grounding. For a moment, she felt steady. Then she saw him. Not him, but someone who moved like him. Same height, same posture, same way of turning his head as he crossed the street 2 houses down. Rain's breath caught. Her hearing thinned instantly, the hum rising in her ears like a warning siren. The man didn't look her way. He kept walking, unaware of the storm he'd triggered. But Rain's body reacted before her mind could reason. Her chest tightened. Her vision sharpened. The world tilted. Her hearing collapsed halfway. She pressed her palm against the fence, trying to steady herself. The man disappeared around the corner, but the damage was already done. Rain's breath came shallow. Her hands trembled. The silence deepened. A door opened behind her. Footsteps approached. She didn't turn. She couldn't. Rain. Royal's voice. Low. Steady. Not touching her, but close enough to anchor her. Rain kept her eyes on the empty street. She tried to breathe, but the silence pressed harder. Royal stepped beside her, leaving space between them. What happened? Rain shook her head. She didn't want to explain. She didn't want to say the name. She didn't want to admit how fast her body unraveled. Royal followed her gaze toward the corner. He didn't see anyone, but his jaw tightened anyway. He understood without needing details. Someone who looked like him, Royal said quietly. Rain's breath hitched. She didn't confirm it, but she didn't deny it either. Royal exhaled slowly. You're safe. He's not here. Rain closed her eyes. Safe didn't feel true. Safe felt like a word people used when they didn't know what else to say. Royal watched her carefully. Rain, look at me. She turned her head slightly. Her hearing flickered, sound returning in thin threads. You're not there, Royal said. You're here. With me. With Journey. With people who won't let anything happen to you. Rain swallowed hard. The silence loosened a little. The hum softened. Royal continued. He doesn't get to live in your body anymore. Rain looked away. She wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe she wasn't still carrying him in her chest, in her nerves, in the way her hearing collapsed at the sight of a stranger. Royal didn't push. He stood with her, steady and quiet, letting her come back at her own pace. After a moment, Rain's hearing returned fully. The world sharpened. The air felt real again. Royal nodded once. There you go. Rain stepped back from the fence. Her legs felt unsteady, but she stayed upright. Royal didn't reach for her. He knew better. He said, if he's reaching out again, you need to tell someone. Rain froze. Royal saw the shift. He contacted you. Rain didn't move. She didn't breathe. Royal's voice dropped. Rain, did he call? Rain looked down at her hands. Royal's expression hardened. Not with anger at her, but with something protective. Something heavy. All right, he said quietly. We'll handle it. Rain shook her head quickly. She didn't want him involved. She didn't want anyone involved. She didn't want the past dragging more people into its shadow. Royal didn't argue. You don't have to talk about it today. But you're not dealing with this alone. Rain turned toward the house. She needed to get inside. She needed walls. She needed quiet. Royal followed at a distance, watching her carefully. The man on the street was gone, but the shadow he left behind wasn't. Chapter 10. Pastor Stone's misinterpretation. Rain sat near the back of the sanctuary, close enough to see the pulpit, but far enough to leave if she needed to. The room was warm, filled with soft murmurs and the rustle of people settling into their seats. She kept her eyes on the floor, tracing the pattern of the carpet with her gaze. It helped her stay present. Journey sat beside her, hands folded neatly in her lap. River sat on the other side, tapping her foot lightly, restless as always. Rain tried to focus on the rhythm, but even that felt too loud. Pastor Stone stepped up to the pulpit, smiling warmly at the congregation. He was gentle, steady, the kind of man people trusted without thinking. Rain respected him, but she didn't want to be seen today. She didn't want attention. She didn't want questions. The service began. Music rose softly, voices blending in a way that usually soothed her. Today it felt distant. Rain's hearing was stable, but her chest felt tight. The flash from earlier still lingered in her mind, sharp around the edges. Pastor Stone began his message, speaking about burdens, about silence, about people who carried things they never talked about. Rain shifted in her seat. The words pressed against her, too close, too pointed. Then he looked directly at her. "Some of us," he said gently, "are struggling in ways we don't understand. We shut down. We withdraw. We isolate. Not because we want to, but because we're fighting battles we haven't named yet." Rain's breath caught. Journey stiffened beside her. River glanced over, eyes narrowing. Pastor Stone continued, still looking at Rain. "And sometimes silence is not rebellion. It's pain. It's fear. It's confusion. It's the weight of something we haven't surrendered." Rain's hearing thinned instantly. The hum rose in her ears. The sanctuary blurred slightly. She blinked hard, trying to stay grounded, but the pressure in her chest tightened. Journey whispered her name, but Rain couldn't hear it clearly. The music, the murmurs, the shifting bodies around her all faded into a soft, distant blur. Pastor Stone stepped away from the pulpit, voice still gentle. "If that's you, know this. God sees you, even when you can't speak, even when you can't hear, even when you can't explain." Rain's vision sharpened around the edges. The room felt too bright, too focused on her. She lowered her head, trying to disappear into the seat. River leaned in. "He's talking about you." Rain shook her head quickly. She didn't want this. She didn't want to be an example. She didn't want her silence turned into a sermon. Journey placed a hand on Rain's arm, grounding her. "It's okay. Breathe." Rain tried. The hum grew louder. The sanctuary felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Pastor Stone lifted his hand toward her. "Rain, you don't have to run from whatever is hurting you. You're surrounded by people who love you." Rain's hearing collapsed halfway. Not full silence, but enough to make the room tilt. Enough to make her chest tighten. Enough to make her want to leave. Journey stood quickly. "Come on," she whispered. Rain followed her out of the row, head down, breath shallow. River stood too, shielding her from the stairs. They moved toward the exit, the sanctuary blurring behind them. As soon as they stepped into the hallway, Rain leaned against the wall, eyes closed. The hum softened. The pressure eased. Her hearing returned in thin threads. Journey rubbed her back gently. He meant well. Rain shook her head. Meaning well didn't make it easier. Meaning well didn't stop the collapse. Meaning well didn't stop the memories from stirring. River crossed her arms. "He shouldn't have singled you out." Rain didn't respond. She didn't want to talk. She didn't want to think. She just wanted the silence to lift completely. Journey watched her carefully. "You want to go home?" Rain nodded. River grabbed her keys. "Let's go." As they walked toward the exit, Rain glanced back at the sanctuary doors. Pastor Stone's voice drifted faintly through the crack, warm and steady. He didn't know what he'd touched. He didn't know what her silence was protecting. And Rain wasn't ready to let anyone close enough to find out. Chapter 11. The Smell in the Hallway. Rain walked down the hallway after they returned from church, needing a moment alone. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that usually helped her settle. She ran her fingers along the wall as she walked, grounding herself in the texture, the temperature, the familiarity. Halfway down the hall, she stopped. A scent drifted through the air. Faint, familiar, wrong. It wasn't strong enough to identify, but it hit her with the force of a memory she didn't want. Something warm, something musky, something that didn't belong in this house. Her breath caught, her hearing thinned instantly, the hum rising in her ears. She pressed her palm against the wall, trying to steady herself, but the scent grew sharper, as if the air itself remembered something she didn't. A flash hit her. Not an image this time. A feeling. A room. A presence behind her. A voice she couldn't hear. A moment she wanted to forget. Rain staggered back, her shoulder hitting the wall. The hallway tilted slightly. Her hearing collapsed halfway, muting the world into a soft, suffocating blur. She closed her eyes, trying to breathe through it. One thing she could see. One thing she could feel. One thing she could hear. But the scent pulled her backward, deeper, closer to something she wasn't ready to face. Footsteps approached. Slow, careful, royal. He stopped a few feet away, watching her with a steady, unreadable expression. Rain. She didn't look at him. She couldn't. The scent still lingered, clinging to the air, clinging to her memory. Royal stepped closer, but not too close. What happened? Rain shook her head. She didn't want to explain. She didn't want to say she smelled something that shouldn't exist. She didn't want to admit how fast her body unraveled. Royal inhaled slightly, testing the air. His expression shifted. He smelled it too. Not the memory, but the scent. He looked down the hallway, then back at her. Where did it come from? Rain pointed toward the end of the hall. Royal walked ahead, checking each doorway, each corner, each room. When he returned, his jaw was tight. No one's been back here, he said. Nothing's out of place. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum in her ears softened, but the unease didn't fade. Royal studied her face. This isn't random. Something triggered you. Rain looked away. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to name the scent. She didn't want to admit what it reminded her of. Royal didn't push. You're safe, he said quietly. Whatever your body remembered, it's not happening now. Rain swallowed hard. Safe felt like a word she couldn't hold on to. Royal stepped back, giving her space. If the scent comes back, tell me. Rain shook her head quickly. She didn't want him involved. She didn't want him digging into things she wasn't ready to face. Royal didn't argue. All right, but I'm not ignoring this. Rain leaned against the wall, breathing slowly as her hearing returned in thin threads. The scent faded, leaving only the memory of it behind. Royal watched her carefully. You're not imagining things. Rain didn't respond. She didn't trust her voice. She didn't trust the way her chest still felt tight. Royal's expression softened. Whatever this is, it's waking up. Rain closed her eyes. She knew he was right. Something inside her memory was shifting, and the house wasn't the only thing that remembered. Chapter 12, Dream Connects the Dots. Rain sat on the couch in Dream's office, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't slept well. The flash, the scent, the call, the shadow on the street. Everything felt too close, too loud inside her body, even when the world was quiet. Dream watched her with calm, steady eyes. You're carrying a lot today. Rain didn't respond. She stared at the small rug beneath her feet, tracing the pattern with her eyes. It kept her grounded. Dream leaned forward slightly. Your hearing dropped again this morning. Rain nodded once. Was it the same as before? Rain hesitated, then shook her head. This time had been different. Sharper, closer, more familiar. Dream noticed a shift. Something triggered you. Rain swallowed hard. She didn't want to talk about the scent. She didn't want to talk about the flash. She didn't want to talk about the man who looked like her ex. She didn't want to talk about the call she refused to answer. Dream waited a moment, then said, Rain, your episodes are getting more frequent, and they're happening faster. Rain's chest tightened. She knew that. Her body knew that. The silence came quicker now, without warning, without mercy. Dream continued. That tells me something inside you is waking up. Something you've been avoiding for a long time. Rain's hearing thinned slightly. Not a collapse, but a warning. She blinked hard, grounding herself. Dream softened her tone. I'm not asking you to tell me what happened. I'm asking you to tell me what you felt. Rain lifted her hand and tapped her chest. Pressure, fear, recognition. Dream nodded. Recognition is important. It means your body isn't reacting to nothing. It's reacting to memory. Rain looked away. She didn't want to hear that. She didn't want to admit it. Dream continued gently. Your hearing doesn't collapse because you're weak. It collapses because your body is trying to protect you from something it thinks is dangerous. Rain's breath caught. She pressed her fingers to her temple, grounding herself. Dream watched her carefully. Rain, when did the first episode happen? Rain hesitated, then lifted 3 fingers. 3 years ago. Dream nodded slowly. And what happened around that time? Rain's throat tightened. She looked down at her hands. She didn't want to say it. She didn't want to bring him into the room. Dream didn't push. You don't have to speak. Just nod if it involves someone. Rain nodded once. Dream's expression softened. Someone you trusted. Rain nodded again, slower this time. Dream exhaled. That's enough. I understand. Rain didn't look up. Her hearing flickered again, the hum rising in her ears. Dream leaned back, giving her space. Rain, your body is remembering faster than your mind is ready to. That's why the episodes feel stronger. That's why the triggers feel sharper. Rain swallowed hard. She didn't want this. She didn't want anything waking up inside her. Dream continued. You're not losing control. You're getting closer to the truth. Rain's hearing collapsed halfway. The room muted. The air thickened. She pressed her palm against the couch, grounding herself. Dream didn't panic. She lowered her voice, calm and steady. You're okay. You're safe. Stay with me. Rain focused on Dream's breathing. The rise and fall, the steadiness, the calm. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin threads. Dream nodded. Good. You came back faster this time. Rain exhaled shakily. She didn't feel stronger. She felt exposed. Dream studied her face. Rain, someone else knows what happened, don't they? Rain froze. Dream saw the shift. Someone who was there, or someone who saw the signs. Rain didn't move. Dream's voice softened. Is it Royal? Rain's breath hitched. Dream didn't react with surprise. She simply nodded. Then he's carrying a piece of the story you're not ready to face. Rain closed her eyes. Dream's voice was gentle but firm. And that means the truth is closer than you think. Rain opened her eyes slowly. Her hearing was steady again, but her chest felt tight. Dream didn't push further. That's enough for today. Rain stood, legs unsteady but holding. Dream walked her to the door, giving her space. Rain, Dream said softly, whatever is waking up, you're strong enough to face it, even if you don't feel like it yet. Rain stepped into the hallway. She didn't feel strong. She felt like something inside her was cracking, and Royal knew why. Chapter 13. Confrontation with Chance. Rain found Chance in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch with his elbows on his knees. He looked like he'd been waiting for her. The moment she stepped into the room, he stood, tension tightening his shoulders. We need to talk, he said. Rain froze. Those words always made her chest tighten. She stayed near the doorway, keeping distance between them. Chance ran a hand through his hair. I saw you outside earlier. With Royal. You were shaking. You didn't even look at me when you came in. Rain looked down at her hands. She didn't want this conversation. Not today. Not after the flash, the scent, the call, the shadow. Chance took a step closer. Rain, I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can to understand what's happening to you, but you won't let me in. Rain's hearing thinned. Not from anger. From pressure. From the weight of his voice. From the way he said, won't, like she was choosing this. Chance didn't notice the shift. You shut down every time I ask a question. You walk away. You disappear into yourself. And I'm standing here trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Rain shook her head quickly. It wasn't him. It wasn't anything he did. But the words wouldn't come out. Chance stepped closer again. Too close. Rain, talk to me. Please. I can't keep guessing. Rain's hearing flickered harder. The room blurred slightly. She pressed her palm against the wall, trying to steady herself. Chance reached for her arm. Rain flinched. Her hearing collapsed. The world muted instantly, dropping into that deep, suffocating silence. Chance's voice became nothing but the shape of his mouth moving. The room tilted. Her breath caught. Chance froze, realizing too late what he'd triggered. He stepped back, hands raised. Okay. I'm sorry. Rain shook her head, eyes squeezed shut. She pressed her fingers to her temple, trying to breathe through the silence. The pressure in her chest tightened. The air felt thick. Chance's face crumpled. Rain, I didn't mean to push you. She couldn't hear him, but she saw the apology in his eyes. The guilt, the fear, the helplessness. He sank to his knees in front of her, not touching her, just grounding himself in her line of sight. I'm sorry, he said again, slower this time. Rain opened her eyes. The silence was still heavy, but the panic eased slightly. She focused on his breathing, the rise and fall of his chest. It helped. Chance swallowed hard. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to understand you. Rain blinked, grounding herself. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin threads. Chance exhaled in relief. There you are. Rain leaned back against the wall, exhausted. She didn't want to fight. She didn't want to explain. She didn't want to be the reason. He looked so broken. Chance sat back on his heels. I know something happened to you. I know it wasn't small. And I know you don't trust yourself to talk about it yet. Rain looked away. He wasn't wrong. Chance continued, voice low. But Rain, I can't help you if you keep shutting me out. Rain's throat tightened. She wasn't shutting him out. She was trying to survive her own body. Chance stood slowly. I'm not going anywhere, but I need you to meet me halfway, even if it's just one word. Rain swallowed hard. One word felt impossible. Chance stepped back, giving her space. When you're ready. Rain stayed against the wall long after he left the room. Her hearing was steady again, but her chest still felt tight. She didn't want to hurt him, but she didn't know how to let him in without breaking open. And she wasn't sure she could survive that. Chapter 14. Family's Secret Surfaces. Rain sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor. The house was quiet, but her mind wasn't. Everything felt too close, too loud inside her body. She tried to breathe slowly, but her chest stayed tight. A soft knock sounded at the door. Journey stepped inside without waiting for an answer. She closed the door gently behind her and leaned against it, watching Rain with careful eyes. You've been in here for hours, Journey said. I wanted to check on you. Rain didn't look up. She didn't want to talk. She didn't want to explain the heaviness pressing against her ribs. Journey walked over and sat beside her, leaving space between them. I'm not here to push you. I need to tell you something. Rain's breath caught. Journey rarely said things like that. Rain lifted her eyes slowly. Journey hesitated, choosing her words. I talked to someone today. Rain's stomach tightened. Her hearing thinned slightly, the hum rising in her ears. Journey continued. It was about you. Rain looked away. She didn't want to hear this. She didn't want to know who was talking about her or why. Journey exhaled. It was a family member. Rain froze. Journey saw the shift. Not the one you're thinking of. Someone else. Rain's hearing flickered harder. She pressed her fingers to her temple, grounding herself. Journey softened her voice. Rain, they said something happened years ago. Something you never told anyone. Rain's breath hitched. The hum grew louder. The room tilted slightly. Journey reached out, but stopped before touching her. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to push. But they said you changed after that year. They said you stopped talking, stopped trusting, stopped being yourself. Rain shook her head quickly. She didn't want this. She didn't want the past dragged into the room. She didn't want Journey carrying pieces she wasn't ready to face. Journey swallowed hard. Rain, they said someone hurt you. Rain's hearing collapsed halfway. The world muted. The air thickened. She pressed her palm against the bed, trying to steady herself. Journey's eyes filled with worry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it like that. I needed to understand why you're breaking like this. Rain shook her head again, harder this time. She wasn't breaking. She was remembering. Her body was remembering. Her mind was trying to keep up. Journey's voice softened. I'm not asking you to tell me what happened. I'm not asking you to relive anything. I just want you to know you're not crazy. You're not imagining the fear. You're not overreacting. Rain blinked, grounding herself. The hum softened slightly. Journey continued. Someone in this family knows the truth, and they've been carrying it quietly, hoping you'd never have to face it. Rain's chest tightened. She didn't want anyone carrying anything for her. She didn't want secrets. She didn't want pity. Journey looked at her gently. Rain, whatever happened, you didn't deserve it. Rain closed her eyes. The silence inside her deepened, not from collapse, but from the weight of the words. Journey stood slowly. I'm here when you're ready. No pressure. No questions. She walked to the door, paused, and looked back. You're not alone, even if it feels like it. Rain stayed on the bed long after Journey left. Her hearing returned in thin threads, but her chest still felt tight. Someone in her family knew the truth, and that meant the past wasn't just waking up. It was coming for her. Chapter 15. The Partner's Return. Rain sat on the edge of the couch, trying to quiet her mind. The house was dim, the evening light fading through the windows. She pulled her knees close, grounding herself in the steady rhythm of her breathing. She needed calm. She needed stillness. Her phone buzzed. She didn't move. It buzzed again, then again, a steady vibration that crawled under her skin. Rain reached for it slowly, as if touching it might burn her. The screen lit up. Unknown number. Her chest tightened. Her hearing thinned instantly, the hum rising in her ears. She stared at the screen, frozen. She didn't want to open it. She didn't want to see the message. She didn't want to confirm what her body already knew. The phone buzzed again. A text preview appeared. Rain's breath caught. It was him. She didn't need to read the words. The shape of his name in the preview was enough to make her vision sharpen around the edges. Her fingers trembled. The hum grew louder. The room tilted slightly. She dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a soft thud, but Rain didn't hear it. Her hearing collapsed halfway, muting the world into a thick, suffocating blur. She pressed her palm against her chest, trying to breathe through the pressure. Footsteps approached from the hallway. Rain didn't look up. She couldn't. Royal stepped into the room, stopping when he saw her posture, her shaking hands, the phone on the floor. Rain. She didn't respond. Her breath came shallow. Her hearing was fading fast. Royal crouched down slowly, picking up the phone. He glanced at the screen. His expression hardened instantly. He didn't say the name out loud. He didn't have to. He stood, jaw tight, shoulders tense. He contacted you. Rain squeezed her eyes shut. She didn't want to hear the anger in his voice. She didn't want to feel the weight of his reaction. She didn't want anyone involved. Royal stepped closer, but not too close. Rain, look at me. She lifted her eyes slowly. The room was muted, but she could see the concern in his face. The protectiveness. The guilt. Royal lowered his voice. You're safe. He can't get to you. Rain shook her head. Safe didn't feel true. Safe felt like a word people used when they didn't understand the way trauma lived inside the body. Royal exhaled slowly. What did he say? Rain didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat felt tight, her hearing still muted. Royal looked at the phone again, reading the message silently. His jaw clenched. He wants to talk. Rain's stomach twisted. She pressed her fingers to her temple, grounding herself. Royal's voice softened. You don't owe him anything. Rain looked away. She knew that, but her body didn't believe it. Her body remembered things she couldn't speak. Royal sat on the edge of the coffee table, facing her. Rain, this isn't random. He's reaching out because he knows something is shifting. Rain's breath hitched. The hum softened slightly, sound returning in thin threads. Royal continued. He feels you pulling away. He feels you remembering. Rain swallowed hard. She didn't want to remember. She didn't want to face anything. She just wanted the silence inside her to stop collapsing. Royal placed the phone on the table, screen down. You're not answering him. Not now. Not ever. Rain didn't move. She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She just breathed, slowly, waiting for her hearing to return fully. Royal watched her carefully. You're not alone in this. I'm not letting him get near you. Rain closed her eyes. She didn't want protection. She wanted peace. She wanted distance from the past. She wanted her body to stop reacting before she could think. Her hearing returned in thin, fragile pieces. Royal stood, giving her space. When you're ready, we'll talk about what he did. Rain's eyes snapped open. Royal froze. He hadn't meant to say it like that. He hadn't meant to reveal what he knew. But the truth slipped out anyway. Rain's chest tightened. Her hearing flickered again. Royal swallowed hard. Rain, I know more than you think. Rain stared at him, breath unsteady. The past wasn't just returning. It was unraveling. And Royal was holding a piece she didn't know existed. Chapter 16. Royal's Slip. Rain didn't move for a long time. Royal's words hung in the air like a weight she couldn't lift. He stood across the room, frozen, realizing too late what he'd revealed. He looked away first. Rain. I shouldn't have said that. Rain's breath came shallow. Her hearing thinned again, not collapsing, but flickering like a light struggling to stay on. She pressed her palm against the couch, grounding herself. Royal took a slow step back, giving her space. I'm not trying to force anything. I'm not trying to drag you into something you're not ready for. Rain stared at him, chest tight. He knew. He knew something she didn't remember. Something she couldn't remember. Something her body remembered for her. Royal rubbed the back of his neck, frustrated with himself. I've been trying to stay out of it. I've been trying to let you heal without bringing the past into the room. Rain swallowed hard. Her hearing flickered again. Royal continued, voice low. But he reached out, and that changes everything. Rain shook her head quickly. She didn't want anything to change. She didn't want the past to surface. She didn't want to face anything she'd buried. Royal stepped closer, slow and careful. Rain, I was there the night everything shifted. I saw the aftermath. I saw you disappear into yourself. I saw the way he looked at you. Rain's stomach twisted. Her hearing thinned to a soft hum. Royal's jaw tightened. I should have said something years ago. I should have protected you better. Rain shook her head again, harder this time. She didn't want guilt. She didn't want apologies. She didn't want anyone carrying responsibility for something she couldn't even name. Royal exhaled. You don't remember everything, but your body does. That's why the episodes are getting worse. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum grew louder. The room tilted slightly. Royal softened his tone. Rain, look at me. She lifted her eyes slowly. You're not crazy, he said. You're remembering. Rain blinked, grounding herself. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin threads. Royal watched her carefully. I'm not going to tell you what happened. That's not my place. But I'm not letting him rewrite the story by reaching out to you now. Rain looked away. She didn't want a story. She didn't want a truth. She wanted silence. She wanted peace. She wanted her body to stop reacting before she could think. Royal continued. He's reaching out because he feels you slipping away. Abusers always know when their control is breaking. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered again. Royal stepped back, giving her space. You don't have to face him. You don't have to talk to him. You don't have to remember anything before you're ready. Rain closed her eyes. Her chest felt tight, but her hearing steadied. Royal's voice softened. But you're not doing this alone. Not anymore. Rain opened her eyes slowly. Royal wasn't angry. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't pushing. He was steady. And that scared her more than anything. Because if Royal was steady, it meant the truth he was holding wasn't small. It was big enough to break her. And he knew it. Chapter 17. The night the walls shifted. Rain couldn't stay in the living room. Not with Royal watching her like he was holding back a truth that could split the floor open beneath her. She walked down the hallway, slow and unsteady, her fingers brushing the wall for balance. The house felt different tonight. Too still, too aware, like it was listening. She reached her room and closed the door quietly behind her. The moment the latch clicked, her chest tightened. Her hearing thinned, not from panic but from anticipation. Something inside her body was bracing. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling in her lap. A soft knock sounded. Rain didn't answer. The door opened anyway. Chance stepped inside, eyes soft, shoulders tense. He closed the door gently and leaned against it, watching her with a mixture of worry and something else, something heavier. I heard voices, he said quietly. You and Royal. Rain looked away. She didn't want to talk. She didn't want to explain the weight in her chest. Chance took a step closer. Rain, what did he say to you? Rain shook her head. She didn't want to repeat it. She didn't want to give the words power. Chance exhaled slowly. He knows something, doesn't he? Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered. Chance moved closer, stopping a few feet away. Rain, I'm not trying to push you, but I can't help you if I don't know what you're fighting. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum in her ears grew louder. Chance softened his voice. Look at me. She lifted her eyes slowly. Chance's expression shifted. Sadness, fear, realization. You're remembering something. Rain swallowed hard. She didn't want to remember. She didn't want anything to surface. Chance stepped closer, slow and careful. Rain, did he hurt you? Rain's hearing collapsed halfway. The world muted. The air thickened. She shook her head quickly, not because it wasn't true, but because she couldn't handle the question. Chance froze. Okay, okay, I'm sorry. He backed up, hands raised, giving her space. I shouldn't have asked that. Rain pressed her palm against the bed, grounding herself. The silence inside her pulsed, heavy and familiar. Chance watched her, eyes softening. Rain, I'm not asking for details. I'm not asking for the story. I just need to know if you're safe now. Rain blinked, grounding herself. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin threads. Chance exhaled in relief. There you are. He sat on the floor in front of her, not touching her, just close enough to anchor her. I'm not going anywhere, even if you never tell me what happened. Rain looked down at her hands. She didn't deserve that kind of loyalty. She didn't know how to hold it. Chance continued, voice low. But I need you to know something. Rain looked up. Chance swallowed hard. The night, everything changed. I was there too. Rain's breath stopped. Her hearing flickered violently. Chance's eyes filled with guilt. I didn't see everything, but I saw enough. Rain's chest tightened. Her vision sharpened around the edges. Chance whispered, and I should have protected you. Rain shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. She didn't want his guilt. She didn't want his apology. She didn't want the truth pressing against the walls of her memory. Chance lowered his head. I'm sorry, Rain. I'm so sorry. Rain's hearing collapsed fully. Silence swallowed the room. Chance looked up, panic flickering across his face. Rain. Rain breathed. She tried. The silence pressed harder. Chance reached out, slow, careful, and placed his hand on the floor between them, not touching her, just offering presence. Come back, he whispered. Please. Rain focused on his breathing. The rise and fall. The steadiness. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin, fragile pieces. Chance exhaled shakily. There you go. Rain wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. Chance shook his head. Don't hide from me. Not this. Rain looked away. Chance's voice dropped. Rain, the truth is coming. Whether we want it to or not. Rain's chest tightened again. Because she knew he was right. The walls inside her memory were shifting. In the night, everything changed was no longer staying buried. Chapter 18, The Memory That Isn't a Memory. Rain didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room dim except for the faint glow of the hallway light slipping under the door. Her body felt heavy, her mind restless. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw pieces, shadows, doorways, hands, but nothing clear enough to name. Her hearing stayed sharp, too sharp, like her body was waiting for something. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Rain sat up instantly, not out of fear, out of recognition. Her chest tightened, her breath caught, her hearing thinned, the hum rising in her ears like a warning she couldn't ignore. Another creak, soft, slow, familiar. Rain stood, legs unsteady, and walked to the door. She opened it quietly. The hallway was empty, but the scent was there. Faint, warm, wrong. Her breath hitched. Her hearing flickered. The walls felt closer. She stepped into the hallway, moving slowly, following the scent like a thread pulling her backward through time. It led her toward the end of the hall, toward the guest room no one used. Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. Before she touched it, a voice behind her said her name. Rain. She spun around. Royal stood a few feet away, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He wasn't angry. He wasn't panicked. He was bracing. Rain swallowed hard. Her hearing flickered again. Royal stepped closer, slow and careful. You smell it again. Rain nodded once. Royal exhaled, jaw tightening. I checked the whole house. No one's here. No windows open. No doors unlocked. Rain looked back at the guest room door. The scent was fading, but the memory of it clung to her skin. Royal followed her gaze. You think it came from in there? Rain didn't answer. She didn't have to. Royal stepped past her and opened the door. The room was empty. Still, clean, undisturbed. Rain's hearing collapsed halfway. The silence pressed against her skull. She grabbed the door frame to steady herself. Royal turned quickly. Rain, look at me. She lifted her eyes slowly. The room blurred. The air thickened. Royal stepped closer, voice low. This isn't the house. This is your body remembering something it never processed. Rain shook her head. She didn't want that. She didn't want anything waking up inside her. Royal softened his tone. Rain, you're not remembering events. You're remembering sensations. Rain blinked, grounding herself. The hum softened slightly. Royal continued. Your mind blocked the details. Your body didn't. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered again. Royal stepped back, giving her space. This is why the scent feels real. Why the shadows feel familiar. Why the silence hits so fast. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The room steadied in thin, fragile pieces. Royal watched her carefully. You're not losing your mind. You're not imagining things. You're not broken. Rain looked away. Royal's voice dropped. You're remembering the night everything changed. Rain froze. Her hearing flickered violently. Royal swallowed hard. And you're closer than you think. Rain's chest tightened. Her breath came shallow. The silence inside her pulsed. Royal stepped forward, slow and steady. Rain, when you're ready, I'll tell you what I saw. Rain's eyes snapped to his. Royal held her gaze. But only when you ask. Rain's hearing returned in thin threads, but her body felt unsteady. She wasn't ready, but the truth was coming anyway. And now she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened that night, she didn't face it alone. Someone else witnessed the moment her world shifted. And that meant the truth wasn't just inside her memory. It was standing in the hallway with her. Chapter 19. The door that shouldn't be open. Rain woke to the sound of something soft. A click. Not loud, not sharp, but enough to pull her out of sleep instantly. Her eyes opened. The room was dark except for the faint glow from the hallway. Her hearing sharpened, too sharp, like her body was already bracing for something it couldn't name. Another sound. A shift of air. A presence. Rain sat up slowly, heart pounding. She looked toward her bedroom door. It was open. She never slept with it open. Her breath caught. Her hearing thinned instantly, the hum rising in her ears like a warning siren. She pressed her palm against the mattress, grounding herself. The hallway was empty. Still. Silent. But the door was open. Rain stood, legs unsteady, and walked toward it. She placed her hand on the frame, steadying herself. Her hearing flickered harder. The air felt thick, familiar in a way she didn't want. A shadow moved at the end of the hall. Rain froze. Her breath stopped. Her hearing collapsed halfway. The shadow stepped forward and resolved into River. River squinted at her, half asleep, hair messy, holding a glass of water. Rain, why are you up? Rain didn't answer. She couldn't. Her chest was too tight, her hearing too muted. River frowned. You okay? Rain shook her head slowly. River stepped closer, but not too close. Did you hear something? Rain nodded once. River looked down the hallway, scanning. I didn't hear anything, but I was in the kitchen. Maybe I closed your door by accident earlier. Rain shook her head again. She never left it open. Never. River's expression shifted. Okay, then someone else did. Rain's stomach twisted. Her hearing flickered violently. River softened her voice. Rain breathed. Rain tried. The silence pressed harder. River placed her glass on the hallway table and lifted her hands slowly, palms out. I'm not touching you, just grounding you. Rain focused on River's breathing. The rise and fall, the steadiness. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin threads. River exhaled. There you go. Rain leaned against the wall, exhausted. Her legs trembled. River studied her face. Rain, did you think it was him? Rain didn't answer. She didn't have to. River's expression hardened. He's not here. He's not getting in this house. Rain swallowed hard. Safe didn't feel true. Safe felt like a word people used when they didn't understand how trauma lived inside the body. River stepped closer. Come on, let's check the house. Rain shook her head quickly. She didn't want to walk through the dark rooms. She didn't want to follow the scent of memory. She didn't want to see shadows that weren't real. River nodded. Okay, then I'll check. She walked down the hallway, opening doors, turning on lights, moving with quiet determination. Rain stayed where she was, gripping the wall, breathing slowly. Royal appeared at the other end of the hall, fully awake, eyes sharp. What happened? Rain didn't speak. River answered for her. Her door was open. Royal's expression darkened. She didn't open it. River shook her head. No. Royal looked at Rain. Did you hear something? Rain nodded once. Royal stepped closer, slow and steady. Rain, look at me. She lifted her eyes. You're safe, he said. But something is waking up inside you. And it's pulling you back to the night everything changed. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered again. Royal continued, voice low. Your body isn't reacting to the house. It's reacting to memory. Rain closed her eyes. River looked between them. What memory? Royal didn't answer. Rain didn't breathe. River's voice sharpened. Royal, what memory? Royal exhaled slowly. The one she doesn't remember. Rain's hearing collapsed fully. Silence swallowed the hallway. River's eyes widened. What do you mean she doesn't remember? Royal didn't look away from Rain. Because she wasn't conscious for all of it. River froze. Rain's knees buckled. Royal caught her before she fell. Not touching her skin, just bracing her arms so she wouldn't hit the floor. Rain, he whispered. Stay with me. The silence pulsed. The past pressed harder. And Rain realized something terrifying. She didn't just forget the night, everything changed. Part of her never woke up from it. Chapter 20, the night she went missing. Rain sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, though she wasn't cold. Her body felt hollow, like something inside her had been scooped out and replaced with static. River sat on one side of the room, arms crossed, pacing mentally even while standing still. Royal stood near the doorway, watching Rain with a steady, unreadable expression. No one spoke. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Rain's hearing was thin, not collapsed, but fragile, like one wrong word could shatter it. River finally broke the quiet. What do you mean she wasn't conscious for all of it? Royal didn't answer immediately. He looked at Rain first, as if asking permission without words. Rain didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She just stared at the floor, breathing slowly, trying to keep the hum in her ears from rising. Royal exhaled. I'm not giving details. I'm not telling the story. That's hers, not mine. River's jaw tightened. Then what are you saying? Royal looked down, then back up. I'm saying the night, everything changed. Rain disappeared. River blinked. What do you mean disappeared? Royal's voice stayed low, steady. She was gone for hours. No one knew where she was. No one could reach her. And when she came back, she wasn't the same. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered. River stepped closer. Rain, do you remember that? Rain shook her head slowly. Royal nodded. She wouldn't. She wasn't fully conscious when she was found. Rain's stomach twisted. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. River's voice sharpened. Found where? Royal hesitated. Outside, near the old trail behind the house. Rain's hearing thinned further. The hum rose. The room tilted slightly. River stared at Royal. And you never told us. Royal's jaw clenched. Because Rain begged me not to. Rain's head snapped up. River turned to her. You asked him to stay quiet. Rain didn't remember that. She didn't remember anything. Her hearing flickered violently. Royal stepped forward, hands low, voice calm. Rain, you were terrified. You didn't want anyone to know. You didn't want questions. You didn't want the story repeated. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum grew louder. The air thickened. River shook her head. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell any of us? Rain swallowed hard. Her voice wouldn't come. Her throat felt locked. Royal answered for her. Because she didn't understand what happened. And she didn't want anyone else trying to understand it for her. Rain closed her eyes. Her hearing collapsed halfway. The silence pressed against her skull. River's voice softened. Rain, look at me. Rain opened her eyes slowly. River stepped closer, careful not to touch her. You don't have to remember everything. You don't have to explain anything. But you're not alone anymore. Rain blinked, grounding herself. The hum softened slightly. Royal added quietly. And you're not disappearing again. Not on my watch. Rain looked between them. River's fierce protectiveness, Royal's steady resolve. And something inside her chest cracked. Not painfully, but like a door shifting on old hinges. She whispered, barely audible, barely formed, one word. Why? Royal froze. River's breath caught. Rain swallowed hard. Why was I outside? Royal's eyes softened with something heavy. Because you were trying to get away. Rain's hearing flickered again. Royal continued, voice low. From him. Rain's breath stopped. The silence inside her pulsed. And for the first time, Rain felt the truth pressing against the edges of her memory. Not as a shadow, not as a scent, not as a flash, but as a door. A door she had locked so tightly. She forgot she was the one who closed it. Chapter 21. The Trail Behind the House. Rain sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the tree line behind the house. The morning was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that made her skin prickle. The trail Royal mentioned, the one she was found near, cut through those trees like a scar. She didn't remember it, but her body did. Her hearing stayed thin, not collapsed, but fragile. Every sound felt amplified. Every shift of wind felt like a whisper from a memory she couldn't reach. The screen door opened behind her. Royal stepped out, hands in his pockets, eyes on the same tree line. He didn't sit. He didn't speak. He just stood beside her, steady and silent. Rain kept her eyes forward. Why was I there? Her voice was barely audible, but Royal heard it. He exhaled slowly. Because you were trying to get away from him. Rain's breath caught. Her hearing flickered. Royal continued, voice low. You ran. You didn't know where you were going. You just ran. Rain swallowed hard. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Royal sat beside her, leaving space between them. When I found you, you were barefoot, shaking, disoriented. You didn't know what day it was. Rain's hearing thinned further. The hum rose. Royal looked down at his hands. You kept saying the same thing over and over. Rain's chest tightened. What did I say? Royal hesitated. You said, don't let him find me. Rain's breath stopped. Her hearing collapsed halfway. Royal leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Rain, you were terrified. I've never seen you like that. Not before, not after. Rain pressed her palm against her chest, grounding herself. The silence pressed harder. Royal continued gently. You didn't want to go to the hospital. You didn't want to call the police. You didn't want anyone to know. You begged me not to tell your family. Rain shook her head slowly. She didn't remember any of that. She didn't remember running. She didn't remember being found. She didn't remember begging. Royal's voice softened. You were in shock. You weren't fully conscious. Your mind protected you the only way it knew how. Rain closed her eyes. The hum pulsed. The air thickened. Royal added quietly, you didn't forget because you wanted to. You forgot because you had to. Rain opened her eyes slowly. The tree line blurred. The trail felt like a doorway she didn't want to open. The porch door creaked again. Chance stepped outside, eyes tired, face pale. He looked at Rain first, then at Royal, then at the trees. I remember that night too, Chance said quietly. Rain's hearing flickered violently. Chance walked down the steps and stood in the yard, staring at the trail. I wasn't there when Royal found you, but I saw you when he brought you back. Rain's stomach twisted. Chance continued, voice low. You wouldn't let anyone touch you. You wouldn't let anyone near you. You kept looking at the door like someone was coming. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum grew louder. Chance turned toward her. Rain, you didn't sleep for 2 days. Rain's breath hitched. Royal added, and when you finally did, you woke up screaming. Rain's hearing collapsed fully. Silence swallowed the porch. Chance stepped closer, careful not to touch her. Rain, you didn't imagine this. You didn't make it up. Something happened. Something real. Rain squeezed her eyes shut. The silence pulsed. Her chest tightened. Royal leaned toward her. You survived something you weren't supposed to survive. Rain opened her eyes slowly. The trail behind the house blurred into a memory she didn't have, but her body did. And for the first time, Rain realized something terrifying. She didn't just run from him that night. She ran for her life. Chapter 22. The Unfinished Sentence. Rain stayed on the porch long after Royal and Chance went inside. The morning light had shifted, turning the trees gold, but she didn't feel warmth. She felt hollow, heavy, like her body was carrying a story her mind refused to hold. Her hearing was thin again, not collapsed, but stretched like a thread pulled too tight. The screen door opened softly. Journey stepped out, wrapped in a sweater, eyes full of worry she tried to hide. She sat beside Rain, leaving space between them. Neither spoke. Journey watched the tree line. I heard what they said. Rain's breath caught. Her hearing flickered. Journey continued, voice gentle. I didn't know you went missing that night. I didn't know you were found outside. I didn't know you were running. Rain swallowed hard. She didn't want to talk. She didn't want to explain the weight pressing against her ribs. Journey looked down at her hands. Rain, why didn't you tell me? Rain shook her head slowly. She didn't know. She didn't remember. She didn't understand why she begged Royal to stay quiet. She didn't understand why her mind erased the night. Journey exhaled. You've always been the strong one, the quiet one, the one who held everything together, even when you were falling apart. Rain looked away. Journey's voice softened. But you don't have to be strong right now. Rain's hearing thinned further. The hum rose. Journey turned toward her. Rain, do you remember anything from that night? Rain shook her head again, slower this time. Her throat tightened. Her chest felt heavy. Journey hesitated. Do you want to? Rain froze. Her hearing flickered violently. Journey saw the shift. Okay, that's too much. I'm sorry. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum pulsed. The air thickened. Journey continued gently. You don't have to remember everything at once. You don't have to force anything. But you do need to know something. Rain lifted her eyes slowly. Journey swallowed hard. Someone in the family knew something was wrong before that night. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing collapsed halfway. Journey kept her voice steady. They saw the signs. They saw the changes. They saw the fear. They just didn't know what it meant. Rain pressed her palm against her chest, grounding herself. Journey added quietly, and they said you tried to tell someone, but you stopped mid-sentence. Rain's eyes widened. Journey nodded. You said, if anything happens to me, it's because, and then you froze. You never finished. Rain's stomach twisted. Her hearing flickered harder. Journey's voice cracked. Rain, what were you trying to say? Rain shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. She didn't know. She didn't remember. But her body reacted like it did. Journey reached out, stopping just short of touching her. You don't have to finish it today, but you started that sentence for a reason. Rain closed her eyes. The silence inside her pulsed, heavy and familiar. Journey whispered, and whatever you were trying to say, it wasn't your fault. Rain opened her eyes slowly. Her hearing returned in thin, fragile pieces. The unfinished sentence echoed in her mind. If anything happens to me, it's because she didn't remember the end, but her body did, and it was trying to tell her. Chapter 23. The Body Speaks First. Rain stayed on the porch long after Journey went inside. The unfinished sentence echoed in her mind like a heartbeat she couldn't slow down. If anything happens to me, it's because her body reacted every time she tried to finish it. Her chest tightened. Her hearing thinned. Her breath caught. It was like her nervous system was guarding the ending, refusing to let it surface. She wrapped the blanket tighter around herself. The screen door opened again. This time it was River. River didn't sit. She leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Protective. Angry. Not at Rain, at the situation, at the silence, at the truth hiding in the shadows. You're shaking, River said quietly. Rain looked down. She hadn't noticed. River continued. Your body knows something your mind doesn't. Rain swallowed hard. Her hearing flickered. River stepped closer, slow and careful. Rain, I need to ask you something. And I'm not asking to hurt you. I'm asking because we can't protect you if we don't understand what we're protecting you from. Rain's breath caught. River hesitated. Before that night, did he scare you? Rain's hearing thinned instantly. The hum rose. Her chest tightened. River lifted her hands, palms out. Okay, that's a yes. Rain shook her head quickly, but her body betrayed her. Her shoulders tensed. Her breath shortened. Her fingers trembled. River softened her voice. Rain, you don't have to speak. Just listen. Rain blinked, grounding herself. River continued. Your body is telling the story before your mind can. That's not weakness. That's survival. Rain looked away. River stepped closer. You think you're losing control. You're not. You're remembering in the only way your brain feels safe. Rain pressed her palm against her chest. The hum pulsed. River added, and the reason you can't finish that sentence is because the ending is the part that broke you. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered violently. River's voice cracked. Rain, did he threaten you? Rain froze. Her hearing collapsed halfway. River's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Okay, that's another yes. Rain shook her head, but her body reacted, shoulders curling inward, breath shallow, hands trembling. River whispered, Rain, what did he say to you? Rain squeezed her eyes shut. The silence pressed harder. Her chest felt like it was closing. River stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper. Did he tell you not to tell anyone? Rain's entire body flinched. Her hearing collapsed fully. River covered her mouth, devastated. Oh God. Rain. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple, trying to breathe through the silence. The porch blurred. The air thickened. River knelt in front of her, not touching her, just anchoring her. Rain, you didn't stay quiet because you wanted to. You stayed quiet because he made you. Rain opened her eyes slowly. The silence pulsed. Her chest tightened. River whispered, and that unfinished sentence, that was you trying to warn someone. Rain's breath trembled. River continued, voice breaking. You were trying to save yourself. The hum softened. Sound returned in thin, fragile pieces. Rain inhaled shakily. River wiped her face quickly, regaining her strength. Rain, you're not crazy. You're not imagining this. You're not overreacting. Your body is telling the truth. Rain looked at her, eyes glassy. River held her gaze. And when you're ready, we'll finish that sentence together. Rain exhaled slowly. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like she was surfacing, and the truth, whatever it was rising with her. Chapter 24. The phone call that shouldn't exist. Rain sat at the kitchen table with a cup of untouched tea in front of her. The house was quiet, but her body wasn't. Her chest felt tight, her hands cold, her hearing thin. She stared at the steam rising from the cup, watching it curl and fade like a memory she couldn't hold. Her phone buzzed on the table. Rain flinched. River, who was leaning against the counter, straightened instantly. Don't touch it. Rain didn't move. She didn't breathe. The vibration continued, steady and insistent. Royal walked in from the hallway, eyes sharp. Is that him? Rain didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her body reacted before her mind could form words. Her hearing flickered. Her breath shortened. Her fingers trembled. Royal stepped closer, slow and controlled. Rain, look at me. She lifted her eyes. Royal nodded once. You're safe. The phone buzzed again. Rain's hearing thinned further. The hum rose. The room tilted slightly. River grabbed the phone before Rain could reach for it. She looked at the screen, and her expression changed instantly. It's the same number, River said quietly. The one from before. Rain's stomach twisted. Royal held out his hand. Give it to me. River hesitated, then placed the phone in his palm. Royal looked at Rain. Do you want me to answer? Rain shook her head violently. Royal nodded. Then I won't. The phone buzzed again. Royal turned it face down on the table. He's escalating. Rain pressed her fingers to her temple. The hum pulsed. The air thickened. River crossed her arms. Why now? Why is he calling now? Royal didn't look away from Rain. Because she's remembering. Rain's breath caught. Her hearing flickered violently. River frowned. But she doesn't remember anything. Royal shook his head. Her mind doesn't. Her body does. Rain closed her eyes. The silence inside her pulsed, heavy and familiar. River stepped closer. Rain, what do you feel when he calls? Rain opened her eyes slowly. Her throat tightened. Her chest felt heavy. Her hearing was thin, fragile. She whispered one word. Fear. River's face softened. Okay, that's enough. You don't have to say anything else. Royal sat across from Rain, leaning forward. Rain, the night you went missing, your phone was found on the ground near the trail. Rain froze. Her hearing collapsed halfway. Royal continued gently. It was still ringing. Rain pressed her palm against her chest, grounding herself. River whispered, was it him? Royal nodded. Yes. Rain's breath trembled. The silence pressed harder. Royal added, and when I picked it up, he hung up. Rain's eyes widened. River's voice sharpened. He knew she wasn't the one answering. Royal nodded again. Exactly. Rain swallowed hard. Her hearing flickered. River stepped closer. Rain, did he call you that night before you ran? Rain shook her head slowly, but her body reacted. Her shoulders tensed. Her breath shortened. Her fingers trembled. Royal saw it. She doesn't remember answering, but her body does. Rain squeezed her eyes shut. The silence pulsed. River whispered, Rain, what did he say to you? Rain shook her head harder, tears burning behind her eyes. She didn't know. She didn't remember, but her body reacted like it did. Royal's voice softened. Rain, you don't have to remember the words. You just have to know this. Rain opened her eyes slowly. Royal held her gaze. Whatever he said, it made you run. Rain's breath hitched. Her hearing flickered violently. River whispered, and it made you finish that sentence in your head. Rain's chest tightened. If anything happens to me, it's because the ending pressed against her memory like a door shaking on its hinges. Not open, not closed, just waiting. Chapter 25. The door she finally opens. Rain stood at the edge of the trail behind the house. The same trail Royal said she ran down the night everything changed. The morning was quiet, but not the dangerous kind. This quiet felt like a hell breath, waiting for her to decide what came next. Her hearing was steady. Not perfect, not fragile, just steady, for the first time in weeks. She wrapped her arms around herself and took one slow step forward. The leaves shifted under her feet. The air smelled like pine and cold earth. Nothing threatening, nothing familiar in the wrong way. Just a trail, just a place, just a memory she hadn't reached yet. The screen door opened behind her. Royal stepped out first. River followed. Chance stood in the doorway. Journey came last, arms folded, eyes soft. It didn't crowd her. They didn't call her name. It didn't ask questions. They just stood there, letting her know she wasn't alone. Rain took another step. Her breath trembled, but she didn't stop. She reached the beginning of the trail and placed her hand on the old wooden post. The wood was rough beneath her fingers. Solid, real, not a flash, not a hallucination, not a trigger. A memory stirred, soft, blurry, unfinished. A voice, her own, whispering something she couldn't quite hear. If anything happens to me, it's because... Rain inhaled slowly. The ending didn't come, but the fear didn't either. She turned slightly, looking back at the porch. Royal's eyes were steady. River's jaw was set. Chance's hands were clenched. Journey's face was full of quiet strength. Rain spoke softly, but her voice didn't shake. I'm not running anymore. Royal nodded once. You don't have to. Rain looked back at the trail. I want to know, but I want to know on my terms. River stepped forward. Then that's how we'll do it. Rain exhaled. The air felt lighter. Her chest felt open. Her hearing stayed steady. She took one more step onto the trail. Not to relive the past. Not to chase the memory. Not to force the truth. But to reclaim the ground she once ran across in fear. She whispered, I survived. The wind moved through the trees like an answer. Rain closed her eyes. She didn't remember the night she disappeared. But she remembered this. She came back, and that was enough to begin again. She turned toward the porch, toward the people waiting for her, toward the life she was choosing. Rain stepped off the trail, not because she was afraid, but because she was free. Author's note, to the one fighting a battle no one sees. If you're holding this book in your hands, I want you to hear me clearly. You're not weak. You're not broken. You are not beyond repair. And you're not alone. Mental illness is not a character flaw. It is not a lack of faith. It is not a sign that God has abandoned you. If anything, the fact that you're still here, breathing, fighting, trying, is proof that God has been carrying you the entire time. There are days when your mind feels like a storm you can't outrun. There are nights when your thoughts feel louder than your prayers. There are moments when your body remembers things your heart has not yet healed from. And yet, you rise. Maybe trembling, maybe slowly, maybe with tears in your eyes. But you rise. That is strength. That is courage. That is survival. That is redemption in motion. I wrote this story for you, the one who feels misunderstood, unseen, mislabeled, or dismissed. The one who's been told to get over it, pray harder, or stop overreacting. the one who has carried shame that never belonged to you. Hear me. God is not intimidated by your mind. God is not offended by your emotions. God is not disappointed in your struggle. He sits with you in the dark. He holds you when you collapse. He whispers truth when your thoughts lie to you. He walks with you through the valley, not around it. And he will not leave you there. Your healing may not be instant. Your clarity may not come all at once. Your journey may not look like anyone else's. But God is in every step, every breath, every tear, every breakthrough, every moment you choose to keep going. If you're fighting a battle inside your mind, I want you to know this. You are redeemable. You are restorable. You are lovable. You are worth saving. You are worth staying. And God, the same God who sees the galaxies, sees you. Not the version you pretend to be. Not the version people misunderstand. Not the version shaped by trauma. He sees the real you, the whole you, the you that is still becoming. And he calls you his. So if today is heavy, breathe. If tomorrow feels uncertain, breathe again. If your past tries to speak louder than your future, lift your head. You are not alone in this story. You never were, and you never will be. God is here. God is near. God is not letting you go. Keep living. Keep healing. Keep becoming. Your story is not over. It is unfolding. And you, yes, you, are worth every chapter.